Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another Friday workshop. This is part 3 of Becoming a Better Writer. This is the final part of this series. We've looked so far at how to start a story, how to come up with some ideas, how to better describe them, how to plan out your story. In this part, we're going to talk about the actual writing part and then what happens after you get your story written. There are going to be 3 basic points I'm going to look at when it comes to the writing part of this. And in brief, they are: be descriptive, keep it simple, and write what you care about. Now, the first 2 might seem contradictory, but we're going to see that they're not really contradictory at all. So just going right into this, the first part, be descriptive. Now, as we've been going through and planning out our stories, we've started out as the most general we could, just getting some ideas out there. Getting ideas of the location, of the characters, of the action. And then we started to get a little more descriptive. We started, just in a list form, writing down descriptions of, say, the characters. So we might have started out 7-year-old boy, last human on Earth. That could have been our very basics. And then we want to go about describing him. And this is going to definitely come up in the writing process. When you introduce a character or you introduce a location, you want to be very descriptive, because as a writer, especially if you're writing prose, this is more so than, say, if you're writing a script for a comic book or for a TV show or movie. This is if you're writing a short story or a novel or something along those lines. You are creating a world. You're creating the people that live in that world. You're creating what happens in that world. You've got to put in the visual cues for those for your readers. So if we start out with 7-year-old boy, last human on Earth, when we introduce that boy, we want to give a clear description of what he looks like. 7-year-old boy who is slight of build and has a look that is younger than what he appears. He might appear to look 5 years old. He might have a short cropped, roughly cropped head of dark hair. His cheekbones might be very evident, showing a general hunger, a look of rough living. His eyes might have a hollowness to them, showing a life of hardship. Just in that very brief description, 7-year-old boy, last human on Earth, all of a sudden we've added more to him. And then the more you add to that character or to the world he lives in, the clearer it's going to be. When you're describing the setting, you want to be very descriptive. You want to let people know exactly where you are. You want it to seem as real as possible, and that's the key. You want your story to feel real. It doesn't matter if the plot itself is fantasy, science fiction, historical, horror-based. You want there to be this sense of reality, that this place could exist, that it is descriptive enough that you could be there when you're reading it. George R.R. Martin, author of Song of Ice and Fire books, Game of Thrones, and the others in that series, is very, very descriptive. He goes about and he explains every little detail about the location, about the world, about the characters. Not only their physical descriptions, but in the case of characters, their mental states, their character, why they do what they do, how they act, what they say, how what they say goes back to their character. Within the world, it's not only the physical description, but also, what might be the political setting, how people think, how people behave. A lot of it comes back to the characters, and that helps to give a much fuller description. So as you write, you're going to work this within there. If you're introducing a character, that's a really good time to describe their physical attributes, and then as you go along, you let the readers discover who this character is. You can't just have that character go through the plot. You've got to understand why the character is doing what he or she does. Along these lines, the plot itself, this is where keep it simple comes in handy. Don't overcomplicate your plot. It doesn't mean keep it, this most simple thing you can possibly think of. Just don't go too crazy with it. I recently saw a book on the shelves at Barnes & Noble, and it had a tagline at the top that said, "A steampunk zombie space adventure like you've never seen before." I'm going to repeat that. A steampunk zombie space adventure like you've never seen before. You've never seen that before because really, it's never happened before because it's so convoluted. You can mix genres, especially when you've had a lot of practice in writing, when you've gotten things out there. Start mixing genres. It can create some really interesting plots, really interesting worlds too. But you can go too far. You can take things that are too disparate and crush them together, and they just look squished together. The fact that they put this on the front cover of the book saying, "Hey, look what this is about. This is different." Different doesn't mean better. Good different is better than just different. And to really advertise that smack dab first thing you see on the cover, that turns readers off. I didn't even want to look at the back. I did, and was disappointed because it was even more ridiculous of a plot in the synopsis than just the front of the book made it seem like. But you want to, keep it simple. When you start off, stick with one genre. Have a basic plot. And if you're writing short stories or novellas or novelettes, you have to keep it simple. You can't get overly complicated or you're not going to have a short story. You're going to have too much going on and it's going to go completely off the rails. The third thing is write what you care about. If you care about what's happening in the story, what's happening to these characters, you're going to put more of yourself into it. You're going to be more careful with how you write it, and it's going to show. If you write about something that you really don't care about, like I could write a romantic fiction novel. I've got the basic skills to put the words together, to create a plot, a romantic comedy or, a period piece that's all about romance. I'm not going to care about it though. It's not something that speaks to me. For me, I might write something that has a little more to do with fantasy or science fiction, urban fiction. That's the style of writing that I enjoy most. I enjoy a lot of different types of fiction, but that always seems to get my interest a little more. So if I'm writing about that, I'm going to put more care into it. And my writing will be better because of it. That's always a simple rule to follow, and it's one that every writer out there who is successful has followed. But you put those three things together, being descriptive, keeping it simple within your plot, and writing what you care about, and you're going to have something of value to put out there. Now, getting it out there is a whole other story, and I could probably do a whole 3 parts on just getting your stories out there, but I'm going to squeeze it down because you can do a lot of this research yourself. Now, there used to be a time, and it wasn't very long ago, where if you wanted your novels to get out there to bookstores to get people to read them, you had to basically get an agent, and then you had to have that agent work with you to submit novels to a few book publishers in New York City, if you're in the United States. If you're in other places of the world, you had other locations, London, Paris, etc. But they were few and far between. Sometimes you could do basically what would be the publishing version of a cold call, where you submit your story or you submit a synopsis sort of thing, and it goes into a huge pile that interns and assistants have to go through, and if they really like it, they might pass it on to their editor, who might have a chance to look through it, and then you might get lucky. Most of those end up going into the trash. It's very difficult to get a story published that way. J.K. Rowling did this with the Harry Potter books. The first one, she actually sent it out to agents. She just said, okay, hey, because agents will get the same thing. So publishers, that can happen. Agents, that can happen. There are other ways to go about it. If you're interested in going through a publisher, there's a lot more now. There's very specialized ones. There still are the big ones like Simon & Schuster, but there are more specialized ones. Tor is a science fiction and fantasy publisher. There's Random House, there's Random House Doubleday, things like that. But there are helpful things to help to let you know what to do, who to contact, what they do. Let me grab one of these. Right here is the book of the guide to book publishers, editors, and literary agents for 2012. Now, what this book is this is a listing of publishers, agents, things along those lines. It gives descriptions of what types of books those people work with, what type of literature they're into. So you'll find that a lot of them in here don't handle science fiction or fantasy at all. Some deal specifically in romance. A lot of them deal specifically in nonfiction. If you go to your local bookstore and go to, say, the romance section or the science fiction and fantasy section, and you look on the spines of the books, you will see a very few publishers. Basically, you get in with them, you get them on their shelves. Good, you've got your book out there, and it's going to go to a big bookstore. Whether or not your book gets bought, it's a whole other story. But that's one way of doing it. That's kind of the old school way of doing it. Now, thanks to the internet, we have a whole lot of other ways to do this. You can create a blog, you can create a website, you can post things on message boards, you can put extracts from a novel or a short story or whatever you're writing out there. You can self-publish. There are websites like lulu.com where basically you upload your book or your story. You can do some other things with cover art and whatnot, and then it's print on demand. If people want to buy it, they order it, one gets printed up. You get part of the money that goes to it. Lulu takes a fraction, and then you get the other part. By itself, it's a way to get things printed, but it's not a way to advertise things. Now, the nice thing about it is that you can, for an added cost, have an ISBN number put on your book and have it go to places like Amazon.com. But one of the things is if you're going to do that, work with other parts of the internet. Work with blogs and websites and message boards. There are tons of websites out there where there are communities of writers that are trying to do basically the same thing you're doing. They want to get people to notice their work. So in message boards, you might find posts where they put the first paragraph or a key paragraph to their story within a post, and then they'll have a link to their Lulu page or to another self-publishing page. There are a lot of websites that do this sort of thing. Lulu's just kind of one of the biggest. But they'll have links where people say, hey, this was really interesting. I want to know what happens more. And they can go and they can buy it. Oh, hey, it's only $5 for this whole novel. Excellent. And you've just sold another book. You've got to put your voice out there. You've got to get people noticing this. I mean, this video is up on YouTube. I'm not very good at this. I realize that. My Wide World of Geeks series has gotten a lot of negative comments from the few people who've seen it. But I'm just starting out. And whenever I post a video, I don't just post it. Yeah, I've got tags that if people search, it might pop up on. But I post a link on. I immediately post a link on Facebook, on Google+, on Twitter, and I ask people to share this. It's like, hey, if you enjoy this, retweet this, share this post. Because my network is one size, their network is going to have a lot of different people, and then if they do that and they keep sharing it, then it can possibly get around. The same thing happens with your stories. You've got to put it out there. Good Lord. I'm going way over on time, guys. So I'm going to wrap this up. I had hoped to make this like 8 minutes. It's like 18 now. Next week, we're going to start a new series. It's going to be an art-based series. It'll be 2 parts long. Until then, Wide World of Geeks on Tuesday. Join us there. And I'll see you guys next time.